Our mission at Trace is to heal the earth with our periods. Women growing up, we get signaled that periods are something dirty or something bad, a problem that needs to be fixed, hidden, to be taken care of. And that's how we're marketed to. But we believe that our periods can be a tool to healing. And in this case, healing the earth.
That's Claire Crunk. She's the founder and CEO of Trace Femcare, maker of hemp tampons. This is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Herlock, and today I'm going to talk to Claire Crunk not just about hemp tampons, but what inspired her to start the company in the first place and what it took to get it off the ground. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you in part by Impactful Ventures, an investment and incubation company focused on supporting startups and other initiatives that play a vital role in mitigating the adverse effects of climate change. At Impactful Ventures, they strive to amplify enterprises that bring innovative, green opportunities to the forefront and empower those making a significant impact for a sustainable future. You can learn more at impactfulventures.org. This episode is brought to you in part by I&D Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana, where they believe in the goodness of hemp. I&D Hemp is a family-owned, mission-driven, and environmentally focused industrial hemp food, feed, and fiber company, providing new opportunities for farmers and rural communities. Their mission is to provide innovative agricultural products and services to connect American farmers with the pioneers and businesses that see hemp as a way to bring real and lasting change to our communities and planet. Learn more at indhemp.com. Okay, welcome back. So before we get into my conversation with Claire from Trace, I just want to read you a few things from their website just to give you a little more perspective here. So it says that Trace is a revolutionary period care company bringing you the world's first farm-to-body hemp and climate-beneficial cotton tampons. Their 100% plastic-free, biodegradable, non-toxic tampons are made from hemp fiber and cotton grown using regenerative farming. It continues. People with periods deserve to know exactly what goes into their bodies and who's making it. So we ensure our supply chain is fully traceable, transparent, and equitable from farm to vagina. All of these innovative practices manifest a legacy of healing ourselves, each other, and the earth. Claire Crunk from Trace Femcare, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Eric. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exciting to get to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. So yeah, thank you. I wonder if we could start with just a simple introduction. Tell me who you are and where you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, howdy. I'm Claire Crunk, founder and CEO of Trace Femcare. I'm also the mom of 3 daughters, so I claim that identity as well. So I'm a women's health nurse practitioner in Tennessee who practiced for forever and got burned out in the system and decided I want to do something different. So founded Trace in 2020, but leading up to that, had some work to do to make a hemp tampon.
Okay, hemp tampon. This is a first for our podcast, talking about feminine hygiene products. So excellent.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
glad to be blazing a trail here too.
Right. All right. Well, let's just start with what is Trace Femcare? What is your mission?
Our mission at Trace is to heal the earth with our periods. And, women growing up, we get signaled that periods are something dirty or something bad, a problem that needs to be fixed, hidden, to be taken care of. And that's how we're marketed to. But we believe that our periods can be a tool to healing. And in this case, healing the earth. So I started Trace because I was looking for period products that were made of materials that were healthier for our bodies. Working in clinical practice and as a mom and as a menstruator myself, was really frustrated with the materials being used and the lack of transparency on those materials. And it made it very difficult to diagnose and treat my patients and to choose what I wanted best. So sought out to make a better product from better natural materials, but I also wanted to make it in a different way. So that way, everything is transparent, which is really critical for consent in my book. So wanted to make tampons and pads with full traceability down to farm level and operate a brand where I personally know every single person that touches the making of this product and every single chemical, and have a primary voice in guiding that process too. So I'm proud to say that we have accomplished that. We make menstrual products out of regenerative fibers that give back more to the earth than what they take, and made in transparent ways so our customers can trust what we're telling them.
Excellent. So talk to me a little bit about, the current materials in use in feminine hygiene products. I'm a non-menstruator, obviously, so I don't know really anything about these products or what they're made from, but sort of give us a quick sort of overview of why what's out there now might not be the best thing to use.
Well, thank you for asking the question and for having the curiosity. And as a side note, I will say that I've seen a much higher curiosity in this product category by non-menstruators, and that is awesome because periods are not a female issue, it's a human issue. So without periods, none of us exist, right?
Amen to that.
Yeah. So these products are typically made with petroleum-derived fibers like polyester, polyethylene, polypropylene, and also rayon, which rayon is basically just trees that have been chemically pulped down into a liquor, and the cellulose is extracted from that and made into a man-made fiber. Of course, products are also made with cotton, which can be conventional cotton or organic cotton. And then a lot of these products too have something called super absorbent polymers, abbreviated SAPs. And most often those are derived from petroleum as well. So the last time we had a novel ingredient or a new ingredient introduced into products was in the 1970s, literally before I was born, with the introduction of organic cotton. So the materials are pretty outdated, and that's part of why we wanted to invent something new, because our technology has gotten better and our knowledge and education has gotten better. But the other thing that's a huge issue are these hidden chemicals. For instance, there is a chemical put into polyester to make it bright white because, like I said, we've been taught since we first have our period that periods are dirty and that white is pure and clean. And so the big guys think that us ladies need something white to feel pure and clean.
To feel fresh, right.
Exactly.
But
and
you
then
don't. You're saying that you don't need that.
No, not at all. Totally. I mean, this is 2023. We actually prefer things that are unbleached and that are not dyed unnecessarily.
Right.
And there are products on market today that are dyed like neon green. There's no reason to have that in our products. And then there's a lot of chemistry that goes into the manufacturing of these fibers and the making of the final product. And some of those aren't great.
How did you educate yourself on all of these other materials?
So when I first had the idea in 2018, I signed up for a conference with a trade organization that I'm a member of called INDA. And the timing just worked out really lovely. The conference is called Hygienics, and it's all about absorbent hygiene products. And I took a diaper making course. And so learned a lot there. And I just started showing up to these trade meetings and listening to the continuing education there. And then I also enrolled in NC State's Textiles 101, just to learn the basics of what fiber is, how natural fibers are made, et cetera.
So you said you started this journey in 2018.
That's right.
And you said you sort of got burned out you were a health practitioner before that in your previous life?
That's right. So I practiced for 10 years and had owned my own clinic at one point. And right around that 10-year mark, I actually had a bad experience and was just wondering, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I was exhausted. I was commuting 3 hours a day and I had small children. And I just lost that spark and
Mm.
felt like I wasn't really helping in the way that I was called to do so.
Okay, so you took a break and then had the idea, or it was something that was kind of building in your creative mind all along?
So I think the idea was brewing all along. So across my clinical career, having these frustrations with caring for people with vulvar rashes, with period pain, period irregularity, infertility, and was really trying to find causes, and did a lot of continuing education around that too, and trying to understand how the products in our environment that we put on and in our bodies could be affecting health outcomes. So this was brewing and grew frustration from a clinical perspective, but I did not have the idea to start a new company and make a product of my own until after that burnout. And really, it's because I didn't have the capacity to think of anything else while I was in clinical practice. So
Right.
taking a step away from that allowed me to just think more clearly, have more time to explore, and have the space for creativity to find solutions.
Excellent. So how do those, chemicals that are in the products now, how do they affect the health of the people who use the products?
Sure. The answer is sometimes we don't know, which is a problem. And sometimes the chemicals are there really unnecessarily, which is a problem. What we do know is that some chemicals, particularly in menstrual underwear, are called PFAS, PFAS. And this is a forever chemical. We find it in a lot of different household products, industrial. This is what Teflon, the origins of Teflon came from. And they cause infertility, they can cause cancer, they can cause autoimmune disorders. So they're endocrine disruptors, hormone
Right.
disruptors.
Right.
So to put that in a product that's touching our reproductive organs, that's a big problem to me. And the reason why those chemicals are used is that they're a textile finisher. So they're applied to fibers, yarns, fabrics to make them more water resistant, water repellent.
Okay.
So that's why they can be found in some menstrual underwears. There's also dioxins, and this one's really tricky. So dioxins can be found in a million different industries. So really any industry that's manufacturing something. And it's really kind of like an off-gassing,
Okay.
but it can happen when you're using any chlorinated bleaching process, which natural fibers, including hemp fiber, has to go through some stripping of the natural oils and waxes to make it absorbent. And there are some processes in the world that still use chlorinated
Hmm.
chemicals that can increase the risk of dioxins. And that is hugely carcinogenic.
Right. Is there any like oversight or regulation on the use of these chemicals in these hygiene products?
Yes and no. So tampons are a class 2 medical device and regulated by FDA oversight. So we are intimately familiar with that process now because we're in it. And as clinicians, understand the need for it and understand the depth of it. However, this process really relies on manufacturer reporting and brand reporting. And this is a huge problem that we're trying to solve in the industry is that there's just no transparency. So the tampon manufacturer doesn't know what chemicals are being used to process the fibers that they're purchasing to make their products. And oftentimes these formulations are proprietary. And so even if they ask the fiber producers, hey, what chemicals are you using? They won't disclose them. So a lot of the risk assessment is categorical in nature instead of precise. And to this day, I think we're the only brand that knows what farm practices happen in their fiber production. So there's also no, oversight on what sort of pesticides, herbicides can be used on the fibers that go into these products. So that said, we have had to do pretty extensive testing on our products. So looking at biocompatibility, We do test for dioxins, of course. We test for PFAS. We test for, all sorts of different bacteria, mold, yeast, and making sure that our product doesn't have any residual solvents, herbicides, pesticides, or anything that could disrupt a normal vaginal flora or a healthy vagina. So that's a long-winded way to say that, yes, there is some oversight, but the industry, the way the supply chain is set up right now, there's still a lot of missing pieces of information that we think menstruators deserve to know.
Okay. So tell me about the individual products that you make.
Sure. So our flagship product is a menstrual tampon. We are applicator free, so very French, very European. And we chose applicator free because our only choices were to use a cardboard applicator, which has a terrible design. I'll be honest, it just doesn't work very well, or a plastic applicator. And that just goes against our North Star values of not being able to biodegrade.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're working on menstrual pads right now too. And those will launch later this year. So our tampons are scheduled to launch hopefully July, August, with pads shortly after.
Awesome. That's exciting. That's so soon.
Yeah.
That'll be here before you know it. So what other things did you have to learn in order to put this company together? Like you owned a business before as a health practitioner, but did you consider yourself an entrepreneur before, or have you had to lean into a whole lot more stuff now?
So I have considered myself an entrepreneur, and I had another company, which I'll share here in a moment. But those two, the first and second companies were really professional services. One is a clinician and one is a consultant. This one, as a startup of a product-based company, of a consumer-facing company, is a completely different ballgame. And I've had to learn everything. And it's been, overwhelming at times, but very fun. So, just from like a business standpoint, running a startup's really different. Raising money is really different. My first two companies I self-funded. In Trace, we've had to raise outside capital. So that learning curve has been really, really steep, and I've needed a lot of help. Now, on the product side, my second company was Southeast Hemp Fiber that I started kind of as my home base for learning all about hemp fiber and learning about the hemp fiber industry and how to make a supply chain that could support a tampon product development. So I spent a couple of years traveling around the country, traveling globally, meeting with hemp growers, testing different mechanical processing OEMs, like actually shipping hemp fiber stalks out to these mechanical processors and flying out and having them run a trial right before my very eyes. Learning the agronomy, learning how, the chemical processing works and how all of this in turn creates a fiber that is functional for a tampon application. So you asked how much of I had to learn. That's been the biggest chunk, is how to make these kinds of fibers from farm to finished product.
Okay. I want to dig into like where you source the hemp from, but first, how did you get to hemp in the first place?
Sure.
Like, why did you even think hemp would be the way to go?
So I left practice in 2018, and that's when the most recent farm bill was passed, we know, that let us grow hemp legally. And I'm in Tennessee, so luckily our state allowed hemp growing for any purpose, research or commercial. So, there were buzz around hemp just in news and in community. So I'd heard of this word, hemp, and I was at a music festival of all things, which I always say this is such a hemp story, is that I really learned about hemp from some random dude that I didn't know at a music festival. But it was a local company giving out samples of CBD and recruiting people into hemp industry and the association here. So that was the first time I'd ever tried any hemp-derived products and got really curious about it. And I'm just a huge nerd. I love reading about science and I'm hungry for learning. And so I came home and started what so many of us did in 2018, just Googling and looking on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no awareness of hemp fiber, but through this learning, discovered hemp fiber and started reading about its technical capacity, what it can do potentially for soil health and environmental health. And those two things together, that was the light bulb moment that it would make an amazing tampon.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
This is probably irrelevant, but the guy at the festival, what did he tell you? How did he get you hooked on him?
Oh gosh, I'd probably had a few beers by then. So, well, it's funny because, now he's a colleague. But he was just, asking, have you ever tried hemp? Have you ever tried CBD? Have you heard of it? I was asking questions, okay, well, how's it going to make me feel? Is it safe? Is this going to get me high? Like, I'm here with my kids,
Right.
There's a lot of education, and saying, we've got a group of hemp growers together in Tennessee, the Hemp Industries Association. I think that's what it was called back then. It was 2018, so a million years ago in hemp years.
Right. Yeah, right.
Like dog years. Hemp years are like dog years. And that was that. I think he gave me like a brochure or something. But it wasn't like a hard sell. It was just how we are in the hemp industry, very welcoming and inviting and education based.
Awesome. So yeah, let's talk about where you source your hemp and I don't know, just maybe tell me where you started sourcing it and like how far you've come in that journey. Like, do you have farmers?
Yeah.
Start in the beginning.
Well, from the very inception of the concept, I knew I wanted to source from the US. Part of why there is so little transparency in period products is because the supply chain is global, complex, and opaque. And the solution to that is to build regionalized supply chains that are brand led and very intimate. So I knew from the beginning I wanted US supply chain that I could, no slaves weren't picking cotton or harvesting fiber, and that I would have just a geographical touch point where I could have direct input and oversight. But there was no supply chain then, but proud to say that all of our hemp is still sourced. All of it's grown, processed in the United States. Now our product is blended with a regenerative cotton called climate beneficial cotton, and all of our cotton is grown and processed in the US as well. So most of our hemp fiber comes from North Carolina. We do source some from Montana, from IND.
Oh, no kidding. Cool.
Yeah.
I put a plug in for them. They're one of our sponsors.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah, so Biofill and IND are two primary raw fiber sources. And then our cotton is grown in California. So this year we're looking to expand our cotton program to the Southeast and just bringing in additional growers on the hemp side. Now we do also have backup supply chains in Europe. We think that our brand can grow and grow really fast. And so we're really hoping to uplift our fiber processors and fiber growers to expand in parallel. But it's just good business practice to have some backups as well. Yeah. And the interesting thing about that is we've compelled them to rise to our requirements of traceability and transparency. So we've been the first brands to say, hey, we want to source from you, but you need to tell us what farms this material comes from, and you need to be able to track it. And we need to be able to meet the farmer and do some storytelling to consumer. And that's true for both hemp fiber and cotton. And honestly, cotton is the hardest one. So we don't source any European cotton right now.
Okay. Are there like certain varieties or like certain ways the hemp has to be harvested for you to get like the exact, material that you need?
Absolutely. I would love to teach a class on this, to be honest. So the answer for hemp fiber is always yes, no matter what kind of product you want to make. And I've preached from the beginning on a freaking soapbox to growers that you have to know what your end product is before you put a seed in the ground. So genetic selection, field prep, seed spacing, harvest time, all of these things will directly influence the quality and function of the fiber that you're even able to extract. And in-use products have different specifications for that. So this is part of why brand-led sourcing is so important in hemp fiber, is there has to be a lot of collaboration, a tight feedback loop all the way down to grower to make sure you're getting the consistent quality of fiber and that grower has a successful crop.
Right.
And isn't, losing crop money. So yes, for our fiber, we do choose fiber varietals. However, we've done some work with dual purpose crops, so grain fiber genetics. And, we need a pretty tight seed spacing. So our fiber quality requirements are probably the highest out of any product that you'll ever see made from hemp.
Okay.
So we require very fine fiber with a consistent length. And to get that fineness and cleanliness of hurd, you really need to harvest it right as it's flowering and definitely before it's seeded.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like the planting density.
Mm-hmm. So really, we don't want our stalks to be any thicker than the size of like my pointer finger, maybe a man's pinky finger.
Okay.
And so for that, we typically recommend a 6-inch spacing or even tighter, which has been a challenge because most seed drills don't go that tight. So sometimes we encourage growers to plant in a crosshatch pattern to get that seed density.
Oh, okay. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then so you've selected the varieties, you have the planting density under control, you know when to harvest. What happened? Are you retting in the field or what happens after harvest?
Yeah, it does get retted. And I also want to point out that we are working with our farming partners who know way more than we do. So, it's not us telling farmers what to do. It's farmers telling us, here's what I'm doing to make sure you get the best product possible. So just, want to make sure that I give credit where credit's due.
Yep.
Yeah. So that seed spacing is important. Harvest is important. And retting just depends on the climate. And depends on the variety. Right now, we are retting everything, but part of what we're still learning is how to create a standard process for that. Mm-hmm. And I think industry-wide, this will come with time just as we do more fiber research. So we do have like a color grading scale, and that's really, the primary thing that we're looking out for. And, other than that, as long as you can get the hurd cleaned out, we don't really care how much it's retted. That doesn't affect our down the line process. But the hurd cleanliness, if it's not retted properly with the technology that's out there today, I've not seen successful cleaning of hurd without retting.
Okay. I understand what you mean about the color grading scale, but I wonder if you could just explain it and describe it for our listeners.
Sure. So, well, I'll just define retting. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Start there.
Yeah. So hemp stalks are full of fiber bundles. There's an outer layer of fiber bundles called bast and an inner layer of fiber called hurd, which is like a woody core. The outer layer is stuck to the inner layer with pectin, and the bundles are bundled together with lignin. So these are two very sticky compounds. And for our product, we need to use fibers that have none of those sticky compounds on them, and we need fibers that have been completely separated.
Okay.
So retting is the process of cutting your stalks and letting them lay down in the field and basically decompose a little bit. So letting those natural soil microbes, the fungi in the soil start to break down pectin with naturally occurring pectinase. And that, like I said, is important. So when it goes to the next step of decortication, where we mechanically take off those fiber bundle skins, it's much more successful and thorough.
Okay.
So retting, the length of time is totally weather dependent. It's soil condition dependent, and dew point dependent. And the longer it sits in the field, the darker the fiber can be. So that's why color grading scales are important because it can inform us as to how long we need to let it ret in the field to have a successful pectinase. Mm-hmm.
So you match up the color. When it hits the color that you want, you're like, all right, it's ready.
That's exactly right. But we also use moisture meter in that too.
Okay.
So once it reaches a certain moisture content. But honestly, that is still a huge wild card in hemp fiber production. And so, like I said, there's a lot of learning and data analysis and just research that needs to be done on that and connecting that to production.
Right.
For our purposes here at Trace, it's important for us to monitor color, so that way we know what to expect in our final product. So our customers prefer a more natural color, and we don't bleach our
Right.
fibers.
Right.
But if the fibers are going to be like jet black out of the field, that could be a problem.
Right.
Or we just at least need to anticipate that so we can educate our customers.
Okay. So two things about retting I want to bring up. It's like regional dependent. Like here on the East Coast, retting is probably easier to do than out in certain arid climates, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the learning curves the whole industry has to figure out.
Right. And that's what I meant by dew point. So
Yeah.
retting is dependent on, condensate, wherein you have your morning dew that dries off during the day. So it's a lot like letting hay lay in the field and
Right.
curing the
Right.
field.
I'm sort of a word nerd, and I like the etymology that retting is, comes from rotting. At least I think so anyway, because that's kind of what it's doing. It's sort of rotting a little bit.
Absolutely. And how beautiful is that? I mean, it's just so aligned with our beliefs here at Trace. And I'd venture to say most of the belief systems of the hemp industry of really working in symbiosis and in harmony with Earth, and stewarding and honoring Earth's gifts.
Right, right. Which feels like a complete departure of how we did things in the 20th century, right? So this is like new paradigm thinking, which is probably also an ancient paradigm.
And
So
that's
it's
exactly right.
coming around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about like the market research you did.
Oh, well, that's a long answer too, because there is a lot of market research. And that's really important. We got to make sure that this idea we have is even needed, wanted, and understand what sort of profitable business can be built around it and what the vision can be. So, I had some intuition about it from the beginning just because of my background and experience in clinic. But right off the bat, literally bought every single brand of tampon that's on market in the United States and had my then 10-year-old daughter. Actually, I guess she was maybe 8 or 9 at the time. I had her write a book report on each brand. So studying the ingredients, studying the language that they were using, the designs, the manufacturers, country of origin, all that stuff. And then did primary research where I just started surveying people. I asked anybody and everybody to talk to me about tampons and just scheduled, one-on-one face-to-face meeting to get some qualitative, just normal people telling me what's going right and what's going wrong. And then also when I started attending those industry trade, this is part of why I started attending and paid dues, is because then I got the really chunky, expensive market research from research firms.
Okay.
Look at trends and actual sales data from competitors and where the industry was going. That research is ongoing. So it's important to us to have a constant dialogue with our customers. We're in constant contact with industry lobbyists, with legislators, and with our industry trade leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's part of our core business is understanding where we fit in and how we can make it better.
Right. Getting back to the market research that you did, just talking to people, were there super surprising answers that you got from people, like things that you just didn't expect?
To be honest, no.
No? Okay.
Like I said, this was intuitive. And I think most people with periods would say that too, that they know that things can be better. So, the answers that I was getting back were very affirming. I will say not everybody cares. So I did have some folks who were very happy with their products, who didn't feel like they needed anything better, and that's fine. We are very diverse people. And so we'll have diverse needs, wishes, and should have diverse choices as well. And we'll never tell people that Trace is the end all be all for everybody. So I suppose that part was a little surprising to me, but I want to respect those folks, educate them, and then they can make their own choices.
Okay. Did that sort of break down along like generational lines, or Is there any way to sort of qualify why you were getting those kinds of answers?
Um, Let me think on how to describe this. Well, I'm not sure if there is a proper term. And I also want to be careful not to just blanket categorize people, right?
Yep.
But I was seeing that mostly from late 20s, early 30s suburban moms with really young children or suburban women who had not yet had children.
They were interested in your products more. Is that what you mean?
No, these were the ones that were least interested.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That
So,
is interesting.
yeah, I'm trying to think what are some other ways of describing, but basically people that wear a lot of bright colors and bright pinks. Yeah, like
Okay.
the pink people weren't really
They
into
were
what we were.
fine with the products that they have and like ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing.
Right. And I really do think that that's a symptom of how we've been spoken to about periods for generations. For instance, just last week I was at an event and I made a TikTok about this. I went on a rant. I was at an event last week that brought together investors and founders and got to meet an investor who was one of the first investors in a major tampon brand that got acquired by Procter and Gamble. It was a really good investment for him. And he said, the reason why it did so well is because their packaging was amazing and their branding was amazing and it really stood out on shelf. And so that's why people were buying it. It was like a beauty brand. And he was bragging about that.
But what about the
And
product itself? Isn't that
right, the
more
product.
important than the
No,
packaging?
it was exactly like every single other product on shelf. And fun fact, all tampons are made by the same manufacturers. So really it's all just different branding and choosing from a different menu of components. But at the end of the day, there's nothing different except its packaging. So that really kind of ticked me off is that, he was celebrating the success because women were being led to believe that this product was better because it was prettier and more modern than, what they had been seeing, when in the end, it wasn't doing anything better for their health or the earth. So, those folks who aren't into what we're doing, I don't think it's because they don't care about their health. I don't think it's because they don't care about the health of the planet. I just think they've been sold something that's not true.
Okay. You used the word acquired, talking about one of those companies. Is that
Mhm.
how would you feel if someone wanted to acquire your company? Is that even something that you consider?
So, absolutely. Anytime you start a business, you need to know how you want to exit. So that informs all of your strategy. And certainly from the beginning, we've built Trace with a potential exit or sale in mind. Now, that said, you never know where the universe is going to lead you, and we remain open to that. And there are so many different variables that play into that. However, we do believe that Trace can grow and scale and capture enough market share to get the attention of big guys and make them kind of sweat a little. And honestly, I really want to be acquired. And part of the reason for that is we're building a new paradigm, a new system at Trace, and I want to infiltrate. So I want the big guys to adopt that and bring that into their operations and scale it further than we could do alone.
How will the work that you're doing today benefit or influence other industries in or outside of the hemp industry? I think you kind of alluded to that.
So I'll start first on the period products industry. And like I said, all brands on shelf use the same group of manufacturers. And if I wanted to go start an organic cotton tampon brand today, I would just call the manufacturer and say, hey, I want to get in a contract. Let's do this production run. Let me pick out all of my colors. And that's that, right? So there's no knowledge of where those materials come from, how the people in the supply chain are treated, how the land is treated to make that product. And there's this huge disconnect. So one of the ways that our work has influenced that industry is, like I said earlier, we've demanded traceability and transparency on the hemp side, but also on the cotton side. And we actually had to leave our initial manufacturer because of this issue. That was a relationship that we had developed over 2 years, and it delayed our product launch for a year.
Oh, wow.
So it was a significant decision that we had to weigh very heavily. But in the end, they were able to give us that traceability information for the first time. They had never had to provide that to any company. And sure enough, the cotton was coming from a country that was notorious for using child labor in their organic cotton production. So we inspired them to do their first social audit ever.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's something I'm really proud of, and a
Yeah.
legacy that our work has created, and setting a new tone for that industry. Honestly, they make like 30 brands globally today. So we're really, really proud of insisting on that. And then on the hemp side, man, we're all in this together, right?
Yep.
We all started together in 2018 when we were all little teeny tiny babies. No one knew what they were doing. We've all been learning together. And so much of what we need to do at Trace to make our product is the same as what our friends need to do to make fine yarns, fabrics, and apparel. And so we've been able to share the burden, both from a financial standpoint and just energy resource
Mm-hmm.
standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel very fortunate that we have, I know we use this word a lot, but co-opetition,
Right.
but collaboration to the highest degree, because we all believe that we've all got to work together in order for any of us to succeed. So that's how I see our work in the hemp industry really making an impact, is that we are pulling through and pulling up so many others with our leadership in research and development.
Excellent. Can you tell me about your team and like who's there? What are they doing? Yeah.
And we are a mighty team of three.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's me and my two co-founders, Dr. Megan Golaski and Olaf Isolé. So Megan is a physician. She's a pediatrician, and she left practice too because of burnout. So, her story is hers to tell, but she is an amazing voice and guide in our company from a health perspective. Um, but fun fact, she's also a Reiki practitioner, and she's a holistic physician. So she brings us a very unique brand voice and is really talented at communicating our values in ways that resonate with customer. So she's in charge of all of our brand, all of our relationship development, which is really important to us, and storytelling. Olaf is my other partner, and he came from Procter and Gamble. He worked there for 25 years as a research fellow, developing absorbent hygiene products. And then I hired him as a consultant for our product development, and just really hit it off and invited him to join full time. So he is our partner in charge of our product design. He's our lead on supply chain now, on fiber production, really doing everything technical, and also developing our analytics and quality control program. So through all this work, we've had to develop our own test methods
Right.
to analyze fibers, and now we're proud to offer that to the industry.
You said your products are launching this summer. So what does distribution look like? How do you figure that stuff out?
Well, launching this summer, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as we say in Tennessee. Like I said, our product is regulated by FDA. And so until we get our final review complete, we're legally not allowed to sell or even pre-order one tampon. So it's really important that we cannot market our product as stamped as safe until that's done. So we have all of our supply chain primed and prepped. We have our product made on a pallet waiting to be shipped, but we can't ship it until then. So that's been interesting as a startup, not really knowing when your official launch date is going to be. Although, we have some reasons to believe it'll be in July or August.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you're not waiting on like a ruling from the FDA, like some kind of blanket ruling, but it's like a specific thing that you've applied for and you're waiting for
Yeah.
them to, okay.
Mhm. So it's called a 510K. It's a pre-market authorization. So we submit to the FDA everything about our product, everything about our business practices, everything about our supply chain, really from farm forward. And we're the first hemp fiber medical device that they've ever seen. So we've had to provide them so much more information than a typical company would. And it's taken quite a bit of time. So it's taken, I don't know, maybe 2 years and $250,000.
Well,
Yeah, it's intense, but no, this is specifically for our company and specifically for our product. So if we change our product in any significant way, we'll need to repeat that process.
okay.
And if any other company wanted to make a product like this, they'd have to do their own process as well.
Right. Okay.
So we have a review team at FDA who's amazing, that's diverse and comes from different departments. And I will say that they've been wonderful and very collaborative and curious about hemp fiber.
Oh, good. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I hear, things not always great about the FDA and their sort of slowness to give the ruling on, CBD products in food and whatnot.
Well, that's been really interesting from our perspective because our division of FDA does not communicate with the food division of FDA. And we had even presented some position statements and some research from all the work that the industry's been doing on the food side, and it's irrelevant to their review of our device. So
Right.
that's been really interesting. And at the same time, like I said, we've been in this process for 2 years, and a lot's changed on the food side
Mm-hmm.
with position statements and all of the things. So sometimes that gives us a little bit of anxiety. Because it's important to us that our review team understands the difference between hemp fiber and other hemp-derived products.
So you mentioned a pad and a tampon. Are there plans for other products?
Absolutely.
One point you mentioned diapers. Is that
Man,
it?
we've got a 5-year product pipeline. So, of course, we're prioritizing menstrual products full spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've done some work on a menstrual underwear development. We'll pick that back up once we get pads rolling and, make sure our Shopify store works properly
Right,
and we
right.
have bandwidth to do that. And we'll probably try and add a menstrual cup as well. But that's going to require some materials innovation to get it to where it aligns with our values.
Okay.
And so over time, we'll expand our absorbencies, add some other products like liners, postpartum pads. And then our vision is to, in those later years, to work on adult incontinence. So pads and briefs and also baby diapers.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So you said, you can't sell any products yet until you get that FDA approval, but is there a way to like pre-order? Like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
imagine like listeners might be curious, like how they can
Sure.
like get involved or learn more or support.
So yes, we cannot sell a tampon. We cannot take $1 of pre-order for our tampons until our FDA is complete. However, we could do a pre-order of pads. So pads, menstrual cups, menstrual underwear, they don't have to do that 510K process.
Oh,
And
okay.
they don't have the same oversight that our tampons do. But we prioritized our energy onto the tampons because that is the huge blank space.
Right.
There are other companies that are doing a great job developing hemp pads. So, we wanted to let them lead the way there. But once we get a little bit further on our pad production, we'll open pre-orders for that. And we expect that to be sometime in the next 2 to 3 months. But just, to be honorable and to be in integrity with our consumer, we don't want to take pre-orders before, we're really close to start shipping product. Now, the fun thing is, which we haven't announced yet, but I will tell you. So you're getting
breaking news on the
breaking
podcast.
news,
Wow.
inside scoop.
Thank you.
Inside scoop. So one thing that our brand really, what's important to our brand is uplifting other storytellers about regenerative agriculture, healing earth, healing self. And so we have an artist in residence. Her name is Kristen Helt. She is amazing. And she has helped us create a couple of products that are not menstrual products, but that are storytelling and tangible connection points between brand, land, and consumer. So I think maybe even Friday, I don't know. I'll have to ask Meg when she wants to press the button to say go. We're launching a limited edition art print that Kristen created just for Trace, and it's limited to 500 prints. So we'll be selling that on our Instagram. And the print is beautiful. It encompasses all of our values, heal self, heal earth, heal kin.
Okay. Are you saying Ken or Kin?
Kin, Kin,
Okay.
AKA.
Yeah, right. All right.
Yeah.
Are there other things we can talk about? Other things you'd like to share from your story? Or, I mean, I think you gave me a really just amazing view into what it is you're doing. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome. I feel like I've been bouncing all around and not
Yeah.
being very articulate. So thank you for your patience with me. Um, I'm happy. I'm an open book. That's one thing about me that I've brought into the brand and was built into our foundation of Trace is that we want to be completely real and transparent, and be vulnerable and not be afraid to share what's not going right or what is going right.
Right.
And so I'm happy to share anything with you. Um, you
Well,
know, tr- oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask about the name Trace. Like, I feel like on one level, it's about, tracing the origin of your products, but I imagine it might work on other levels. You want to tell me
Mhm.
about that?
Did someone tell you that?
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's totally right. So, man, you've got your radio is tuned into my heart. So, I don't know if you've heard of Simon Sinek's why, identifying your core why.
Mm, not really, no.
So, it's a personal exercise to really assess what you think your purpose is on during your lifetime on Earth. And your core why applies to everything that you do. So, your job, your family, relationships, anything will always come back to that core why. And living in integrity means living from your core why.
Okay.
Well, my core why is healing, and specifically healing kin. So, healing family. And the reason for that is I have a lot of generational trauma. We've had a lot of toxic patterns of abuse in my family. And I just decided the buck stops here. And I want to clean that up, clear it out, and heal that in this generation. So that way we can protect my children and my grandchildren, our future generations, so they can thrive and be their healthiest and happiest selves. So that is my core why. And now applying that to my professional life in this, professional opus of Trace, healing kin in different ways. So healing communities, supply chain communities, healing these conversations with menstruators on, what it means to have periods and that they're not dirty, that patriarchy doesn't belong in periods. And then healing in the way that we do business together. So, remembering that businesses are just groups of people and treating everybody first as humans and friends, and then business is secondary to that. So I really do try and embody that core why in all aspects of my life. And, when that goes awry, I can feel that tension and try and be intentional with checkpoints in my life to recenter on that. So I'm really happy. And I guess I should say also the healing part is healing myself, which is always the hardest, right?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing all that with me. That was amazing.
Hmm. Well,
Oh,
thanks for asking. That's
yeah.
that's a little esoteric and gets deep and super personal.
Yeah.
But I believe it's really important to bring something very personal to your professional life. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Right. Exactly. So, can I ask how your own personal healing journey is going?
Sure. So, like I said, I left practice in 2018. And so I was a single mom in college. I had my first child when I was 18. At the time, I was pre-med. I was in college as a first generation college student with a full ride. I'd worked very hard to get there and then record scratch came home from my first semester pregnant with a 1.9 GPA. So that experience was very interesting on going through the rest of my undergrad and graduate school as a single mom. And, I had to take out just a crap ton of student loans. So I borrowed around $120,000 with like 8% interest rate, paid for diapers, paid for rent with student loan money, and started work the day after I graduated. I loved my job as a women's health NP. I love patients. I was really, really good at it. So when I left practice, that was really difficult for me. I tied so much of my identity and my self-worth in my ability to care for other people and didn't really understand boundary settings. And that's why I got burned out, right? So I left practice, and this was approximately, I don't know, a year after I paid off my student loans. And so that was a hard decision because I was asking my family to make a pretty significant financial sacrifice after we'd already been sacrificing to pay off those loans. And then, felt like I was abandoning my patients in some way. So this time was really, really difficult, filled with feelings of guilt, shame, feeling like I wasn't contributing and therefore wasn't good. This gets like really deep, y'all, and definitely a ton of therapy in there. And this kicked off this journey of finding who I really am and learning how to love myself. Now, back then I called that a midlife crisis, just, ahead of the curve. But one of my now friends and colleagues, when I first met her out in California, she let me know that that's called a return of Saturn. So that this is a very common experience in your early 30s, to reevaluate what you're doing with your life and what your purpose is, and to let everything that's not your core self fall away. So that started in 2018. There were some other events that put me through absolute hell. Some very traumatic things that happened. My marriage almost fell apart, so we almost divorced. My children were having some issues. It was just a shit show. I don't know if I can say that word on your podcast.
I think you just did. It's okay.
Yeah. But what it did is it put me in the fire and was really honing me. And like I said, burning away everything that wasn't important and deconstructing my belief system. This required taking some good hard looks in the mirror and being honest with myself and deciding who I wanted to be, and deciding, do I want to do the work to heal myself? Do I have the courage to heal myself? Do I have the courage to face these traumas? And I guess the answer was yes, but I had to ask myself that every single day and keep saying yes every single day. So during that time, work has been a salvation. So being able to create something new, something that's exciting, something that's with a group of other people, that has formed some really important relationships, was a major part of what kept me going. And without it, I'm not sure I'd be here. So anyway, the conclusion of the story does end in a very happy way. My marriage is amazing. If you had given me a crystal ball, I still couldn't have seen how amazing it is today. So I'm very grateful for that. And my husband has had a lot of transformation as well, too. Our children are happy, healthy, thriving. The oldest one just finished her first year of college, and she's interning for me right now. Business is good. We are doing it, man. This dream to make a hemp tampon has happened. We have our supply chain. We made a hemp tampon. We're getting ready to launch. Life is good. And I'm really, really proud of myself and very grateful for the support that I've had.
Claire Crunk, it is so great to talk to you today. Thank you so much for your time.
You too. Thanks for the questions, Eric, and thank you for your work.
Yeah, I love what I do. It's for me, it's about the people. I've learned a lot about myself doing this, and yeah, it's good work. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, so stay on the line. But I think that was fantastic. That was a wonderful interview. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Thanks. I honestly feel like that was the worst one I've ever done. So I'm so sorry, Eric.
See, I'm over here thinking that was the best interview I've ever done. So somewhere
Oh,
we're just going to meet in
it
the
makes me feel
middle.
better. But yeah,
I'm not. I'm not.
I
But
didn't finish my coffee today, so my brain's short circuiting. Whatever.
um,
It is. I've learned
yeah.
not to beat myself up too much. So,
No, honestly, like I thought you were very articulate, and I learned just a lot. So thank you.
well, I can't tell you how nice it is to have this conversation too, because right now is such an insane time. Like it is insane. Something that we didn't talk about is we're building a factory.
Oh, well,
We're
let's
also
talk about that.
okay. We'll
We'll
talk
just
about
drop that in.
that. Okay,
Um,
great. So, like I said, in order to make a hemp tampon, we had to figure out how to make the hemp fiber. And in order to learn how to make the hemp fiber, we had to learn how to measure the hemp fiber. And there's no standard method for testing hemp fiber for certain attributes like there are for cotton. So Olaf has developed these protocols that now we're validating. We've hired some engineering students and doing this validation study with ASTM and our colleagues there. But with this skill set that we've developed in the system that we've developed in the lab that we've built, we'll now begin offering that in a B2B business model where we want to help all of our hemp fiber processor vendor friends that we've been working with for 5 years get some objective, real data to describe their fiber
okay.
and have that really scientific feedback loop, and also to help them market their fibers more efficiently and more effectively. So that's the first stage. The other part of it is that we have begun the process of building a fiber production factory. And this in part is selfish because we need it for our own ability to scale, but also because we see a need as a whole. So, there's a lot of people doing great jobs at mechanical processing and decortication. There are a handful that are beginning to look at degumming and chemical processing for apparel, for yarns.
Mm-hmm.
But our needs are really unique. Our fiber has to be a medical grade. And we are really the only ones in the hemp fiber game that understand all the different, puzzle pieces that need to go together to make that process successful
Right.
and how to operate it in that way. So our facility, we want to focus on hygiene grade hemp fiber that of course can service yarns and other industry, but primarily for hygiene and medical. The other thing that we're really excited about that factory is that the other thing we're excited about pertaining to that factory, there we go, is that we really want to support our colleagues who want to get into hemp fiber degumming. We know that's a really long process. We know that there's some skill and knowledge building that needs to happen. We know how expensive and how difficult it is to raise capital. So we want our facility to be an innovation pipeline and a launching pad for others where they can rent line time. We can do some consulting, have them expedite their product development, get some POs on board, and then baby birds leave the nest and go build their own factory.
Awesome. So like what other kind of like medical products could be developed out of, the technology you're developing?
Sure. So when we think about hospital settings, things like wound care, bandages, tapes, and then also wovens like sheets, towels, PPE. Olaf has worked on quite a few PPE projects using synthetic fibers. So we have some interest in incorporating natural hemp fiber into disposable PPE, and then of course also reusable. There's also other institutional applications like nursing homes where bed sores are a huge issue.
Mm-hmm.
And so how can we optimize hemp fiber to reduce poor outcomes from bed sores and infections, and increase durability of these textiles to save money? And, textiles get laundered and they rip. And then anyway, they have a pretty short lifespan. On the disposable absorbent hygiene side, like we've talked about, baby diapers, adult incontinence, which is actually the fastest growing segment in absorbent hygiene in the world.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, absorbent pads, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, scrubs. I'm a
Right.
nurse. My partner's a physician. It makes sense to make medical scrubs.
Okay. That's cool. It sounds like what you're doing just has implications for everybody.
Totally. And I really do think that the lack of degumming capacity is the number one barrier right now in the US for scalability, that and good data. So we're hoping we can solve both of those things to unlock that revenue stream for our mechanical processing partners and our farmers.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Cool.
So we're raising money for that.
Yeah.
I feel like we're always raising money.
All right. Is there like a Kickstarter that people can throw in on, or like
No,
what?
no, we actually just closed a regulation crowd fund.
Oh, cool. Okay.
WeFunder. Yeah, we raised $340,000 there,
Nice.
which is
Congratulations.
great. Yeah, thank you. That money's spent though, so um, yeah. So right now we are selling equity. For the brand, we're raising 2 million, and that's tranched over 12 months, and mostly that's our runway and raw materials acquisition costs. And then for the factory, we're raising 6 million. And that is really, really important because our state will match up to $1 million for that.
There you go.
But we need to have access to capital committed by the time we file that application. Yeah, and it's going to take 2 years to get up and running. So we're very eager to start now because we need the capacity now.
Right. So you're building that in Tennessee. Where in Tennessee?
Probably in West Tennessee. So we're in site due diligence right now and site selection feasibility studies.
Okay. So you're just out there looking for the right property.
Yeah, we have a really strong ecosystem coming to fruition in West Tennessee. And so that's part of why I think it'll be a strong position. And the other reason is just logistics positioning, distance to port, distance to interstate, so on and so forth.
Cool. Do you know of any other people in the hemp space that are working on this particular, issue or product or solution?
Yeah. So we know of 2 other brands, and I'll share them. One is called Rife or Riff, R-I-F. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. That company is based in California, and they have hemp pads on market. And then the other one is Hempress Hygienics. They're based in Austin, but I think they're actually getting ready to move. And they have not yet launched, but they will be launching hemp pads. And the cool thing about the hemp industry and just the way that we operate business and, believe within our team here at Trace is that there's room for all of us and we want to help one another. So, particularly with Hempress, we, have developed a relationship with them. I have so much respect for their leadership team, and we're cheering them on and want to do whatever we can to support their growth.
Cool. Awesome. Well,
but we're the only ones doing tampons because we're the only ones crazy enough to have tackled that.
Awesome.
It's really freaking hard.
Well, it sounds like you're just off to a great start, and I wish you so much luck, and I look forward to watching your success.
Thank you so much, Eric. We need all the luck we can get, man.
Yeah. Well, they say that luck favors the prepared, and it really sounds like you've been doing your work. So, yeah. Cool. Well,
Awesome.
we'll try the outro again. So, Claire, it's great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Eric. It's been wonderful. And thank you so much for spreading the good word and for doing all of your work.
Yeah. So how about Claire, right? I was introduced to her by the guys at Sunflower Films, Jordan, Maxwell, and Garrett. They're the ones who are working on the One Plant documentary film about hemp and cannabis. So thank you so much, guys, for introducing me to Claire. Claire, thank you for spending so much time with me today. And thank you to our audience for listening. So that pretty much does it for me today. My name is Eric Herlock. I'm the digital editor at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out online at lancasterfarming.com. Get yourself a subscription, sign up for our newsletter, send me an email. You can do that too. You have a question or a comment, just podcast@lancasterfarming.com. All right, keeping it short and sweet today. So until next time, I'll see you in the newspaper.
industrial hemp.
Season 3, Episode 18 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2023 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written, recorded, edited and produced by Eric Herlock. The music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tinbird Shadow.